From the very first moment, the ship slid down the greased rails and struck the water with a thunderous crash that echoed across the shipyard. Sailors, dock workers, and officers watching from the pier felt something different. An uneasy electricity in the air. A sense that this was no ordinary vessel. No standard piece of metal destined to fade quietly into the countless silhouettes of the wartime fleet, but a monster forged for one purpose alone: domination in the most violent naval era humanity had ever seen. And the suspense tightens as the camera sweeps across its towering superstructure, steel plates thick as fortress walls glistening under the sun, radar antennas turning with eerie precision, anti-aircraft guns bristling in every direction like the quills of an angry beast. While deep inside its armored heart, engines the size of locomotives growled with barely contained power, ready to hurl the ship across the Pacific faster, farther, and deadlier than anything Japan had ever imagined. And the tension rises as the narrator reveals that this ship, feared by enemies, revered by allies, whispered about in intelligence briefings, was engineered to survive the unimaginable: torpedoes, bombs, kamikaze strikes, raging storms, burning seas, and endless nights of combat where the horizon glowed red with fire. And as the film plunges into the decks below, viewers feel the claustrophobic hum of machinery, the heat of boilers, the metallic thunder of ammunition elevators carrying shells the size of small cars up to guns that could flatten islands, rip apart cruisers, and silence shore batteries with earth-shattering force. And the suspense mounts as sailors scramble across the deck during a drill, boots clattering, officers shouting, guns swinging toward imaginary threats. Because everyone aboard knows this ship will soon be tested in ways no blueprint, no training manual, no war college theory could ever prepare them for. And the camera cuts to Japanese intelligence officers studying grainy reconnaissance photos, their brows furrowed in concern as they debate which category this vessel even belongs to. Is it a battleship? A carrier? A cruiser? Something new entirely? Because its silhouette defies convention, its firepower seems impossible, and its presence on the front lines threatens to rewrite the balance of power across the Pacific. And the tension deepens as the narrator explains that the ship's designers pursued a single brutal philosophy: if the enemy can build it, this ship can break it. If the enemy can launch it, this ship can shoot it down. If the enemy can imagine it, this ship can endure it. And as night falls over the Pacific and the ship's massive wake glows silver under the moon, its radars scanning the darkness, its crew tense, ready, and waiting, viewers are left with the chilling understanding that they are witnessing the rise of the U.S. Navy's most dangerous ship of the Second World War, a vessel so relentless, so powerful, and so feared that the battles to come will etch its name into legend. And the first encounter, the first clash, the first moment when steel meets fire and the enemy realizes what they're facing, is about to explode across the screen in the next points of this story. As dawn broke over the restless Pacific and streaks of orange light pierced the rolling clouds, the ship's silhouette emerged with terrifying majesty, its hull cutting through the water like a blade forged from iron and thunder. And the suspense tightens as the narrator pulls the viewer onto the bridge where officers scan the horizon with steely eyes, aware that somewhere out there, beyond the waves, beyond the mist, beyond the quiet hum of morning, danger lurks in every direction. And yet they feel an unspoken confidence rising in their chests, because beneath their feet lay a machine built to absorb punishment no other vessel could survive. A floating fortress that could endure explosions powerful enough to split lesser ships clean in half. And the camera dives deep below the deck into the ship's armored core, where boilers roar like caged dragons. Turrets rumble as they rotate into position. Hydraulic lines hiss with deadly readiness. And ammunition crews stand by to feed shells into the monstrous guns capable of launching death over the horizon with the force of an earthquake. And the tension builds as the narrator explains that this ship's firepower was not merely overwhelming, it was strategic, precise, the kind of firepower that could dismantle shore installations, vaporize destroyers, and challenge even the largest enemy capital ships, while overhead, radar operators track faint blips approaching at speeds that could only mean one thing: trouble is coming, and fast, and as alarms begin to ring throughout the ship, red lights flashing like a heartbeat. Sailors sprint to battle stations, locking in watertight hatches, loading anti-aircraft guns, donning helmets and flak jackets, the entire crew transforming in seconds from routine operations to a perfectly calibrated war machine. Each man's role drilled into muscle memory through endless nights of sweat-drenched training. And the suspense rises higher as lookout towers shout warnings, multiple aircraft inbound, altitude dropping, speed increasing, and the camera cuts to Japanese pilots slicing through the clouds, their engines screaming, their orders simple: destroy the American ship that intelligence reports now call the Steel Demon, a vessel so feared that Japanese strategists deem it a threat to entire island chains. And the tension spikes as the first wave of attackers plunges toward the ship, sunlight glinting off their wings, their bomb bay doors yawning open. But instead of panic, the American crew moves with lethal precision. Radar-guided guns track targets automatically. Gunners tighten their grips, commanders shout firing coordinates, and suddenly the ship erupts in a storm of anti-aircraft fury. Hundreds of tracers clawing into the sky like flaming spears, turning the air above into a swirling inferno drenched in smoke, fire, and shrapnel. And as the camera captures the chaos from above, Japanese aircraft spiraling downward, trailing oily smoke, bombs detonating harmlessly in the waves, others striking the hull only to be absorbed by thick armor, the viewer understands with breathless awe that this ship is not merely a vessel, not merely a war machine, but a terrifying symbol of American industrial might, a ship designed to take the best the enemy can offer and still advance. Still fire, still dominate, and as the surviving enemy pilots flee into the distance, shaken, battered, shell-shocked by the encounter, the narrator promises that this is only the beginning, because the battles to come will reveal just how fearsome, relentless, and unbeatable this ship truly is, pushing Point One deeper toward its towering climax as the ocean roils beneath the most dangerous American warship of World War II. As the smoke from the first air assault drifted across the ocean in dark, twisting banners, the ship steadied itself with the calm, terrifying composure of a predator that had merely been stretching before the real hunt began. And the suspense deepens as the narrator brings the viewer below decks where emergency crews race through narrow steel corridors. Fire suppression teams spray down scorch marks left by near misses, and engineers monitor gauges that tremble under the strain of full battle power. Yet even with chaos rippling through the ship's veins, every man moves with precision, discipline, and a cold understanding that this vessel was built to endure far worse than the feeble first wave they just repelled. And the camera sweeps across the war room where officers hover over glowing charts, plotting enemy flight paths, spotting new blips gathering on radar screens like a tightening noose, their faces lit by red combat lighting that casts long shadows across the steel walls. And the tension climbs as the narrator explains that Japanese high command, rattled by the ship's survival, had ordered a second and far deadlier strike, a coordinated multi-wing attack of torpedo bombers, dive bombers, and fighters, a blow powerful enough to drown almost any ship ever constructed, yet unknown to them. The target was not any ship, but a floating war fortress armored like a battleship, armed like a hydra, and controlled by a crew that refused to break. And the suspense escalates when lookouts shout fresh warnings. The klaxon blares again, anti-aircraft crews sprint back to their stations, and the ship's massive engines throttle forward, heaving the entire vessel into a hard turn that sends waves smashing violently against its hull as it positions itself for the impossible task, surviving what is about to hit it. And as the horizon darkens, with the incoming swarm, dozens of aircraft glinting, like steel insects descending with murderous intent, the deck officer screams firing, commands, and the ship explodes into a symphony of destruction. Guns thundering in deafening unison, tracers slicing the sky into burning ribbons, flak bursts erupting into black clouds of shrapnel that tear through enemy wings and shatter cockpits, while torpedo bombers drop low and fast, skimming the waves in a suicidal attempt to land a crippling hit, and the narrator tightens the suspense as one torpedo detonates near the hull, sending a geyser of water towering over the deck, rattling steel beams and shaking the ship from bow to stern. Yet the armor holds, the hull absorbs the blow, and the crew roars with renewed fury. firing faster, harder, deadlier than before, and the camera cuts to Japanese pilots screaming warnings over radios as their comrades fall in spirals of smoke and flame. The realization dawning too late that the ship they were sent to destroy is shrugging off hits that should have broken it in half, firing with a ferocity that no commander had believed possible. And as the last surviving plane limps away, leaving a trail of black smoke on the wind, the battleship-like silhouette emerges from the chaos almost untouched, its deck scorched, its rails smoking, but its guns still turning, its radar still scanning, its engines still pushing forward with unstoppable determination. And the viewer feels the weight of the moment, the terrifying understanding that this was not merely an American ship, it was a nightmare given steel and fire, a war machine so fearsome that enemy pilots would speak of it in whispers. And Point One surges even closer to its full crescendo as the narrator warns that what comes next, the night battles, the shore bombardments, the kamikaze assaults, will prove once and for all why history remembers this vessel as the most dangerous American warship of World War II. As night began to fall over the vast, heaving Pacific, the ship entered its most terrifying domain, the darkness, where danger came not only from the sky but from the depths below, where enemy submarines prowled like silent assassins and torpedoes glided through the black water like fangs in the dark. And the suspense thickens as the narrator takes viewers inside the ship's dimly lit combat information center, where red lights glow like embers, sonar operators lean in close to their headphones, and the constant hum of machinery vibrates through the steel walls like the heartbeat of a living beast. And the tension rises as faint echoes, distant, uncertain, deadly, appear on sonar screens, each one a potential submarine creeping into attack position, and officers exchange sharp, tense glances because they know that a single well-placed torpedo could cripple almost any ship in the U.S. Navy. Yet aboard this vessel, fear transforms not into panic, but into icy, disciplined vigilance. For the crew understands that this monster of steel was engineered not just to endure torpedoes, but to hunt those who launch them. And the camera cuts to the deck, shrouded in moonlight, as sailors peer into the black expanse, their breath forming ghostly clouds while the ship plows forward with relentless power, its wake glowing silver beneath the moon and below. Depth-charge crews load explosives into launchers, hands steady, despite the knowledge that one mistake in the night could mean a violent, fiery end. And the suspense spikes as sonar suddenly screams with a sharp contact. Enemy submarine. Closing fast, and the ship erupts into organized chaos. Alarms blaring, officers shouting firing orders, engines roaring as the helm swings violently to starboard. The entire vessel leaning as heavy steel turrets swivel toward the waterline, ready to unleash depth charges that explode with enough force to crack the ocean floor. And the narrator magnifies the tension as viewers watch the first charges plunge into the sea, sinking like iron meteors before erupting into towering plumes of water and shock waves that ripple through the hull, shaking plates, rattling bolts, and blistering through the submarine's hiding place. And deep below, a Japanese submarine captain stares in horror at the depth gauge as violent tremors smash lights and instruments, the pressure hull groaning like a tortured beast. Realizing too late that the American ship he stalked in the darkness is no helpless prey, it is a hunter far more ruthless than anything he has ever faced. And as the next volley of depth charges detonates with cataclysmic force, the submarine is torn apart in a silent underwater inferno, metal twisting, compartments flooding, crew swallowed by the Black Sea while above, the American warship emerges through the rising steam and shattered waves like a steel giant unfazed by the destruction it has unleashed. And the narrator draws viewers deeper into awe as sailors on deck steady themselves, sharing glances of grim respect for the weapon they serve aboard, knowing that the night is far from over because somewhere out there more enemies lurk. Shadows stalking shadows, and yet the ship presses forward, its radar sweeping, its guns ready, its engines pounding through the darkness with the unstoppable certainty of a machine carved into legend, bringing Point One ever closer to its thunderous climax as the story races toward the moment this ship would prove, beyond doubt, beyond debate, why it was the most feared American warship of the entire Second World War. As midnight deepened and the Pacific turned into a black, heaving void where danger could erupt from any direction, the ship pushed forward with the relentless momentum of a predator that refused to rest. Its enormous engines pounding through the water like the heartbeat of a giant forged from steel and fire. And the suspense swells as the narrator draws the viewer into the bridge where officers stand rigid, eyes trained on the ink-black horizon, their silhouettes lit only by faint red combat lights as the crew braces for the next unseen enemy. Because in these treacherous night hours, the Japanese Navy's most feared weapons hunted silently, stealthy, long-lance torpedoes, ghost-like destroyers cloaked in darkness, and deadly night-trained strike groups that preferred to strike when the world slept. Yet the ship remains unshaken, its radar sweeping like a ghostly eye that pierces the dark, its lookouts scanning with binoculars that reflect moonlight off steel helmets. And below deck, compartments hum with tense energy as sailors check ammunition stores, tighten straps on life vests, whisper quick prayers, and prepare for the chaos that night always brings. And the tension spikes when a faint radar contact flickers onto the screen, slow, low, closing from the east, and officers freeze for one breathless moment before the alarm erupts. Red lights strobing through the ship's corridors like firelight in a cavern, boots pounding metal decks as men race to stations, voices echoing through steel passageways with warnings that ripple across the entire ship. Low-level aircraft inbound. And the narrator heightens the suspense as the camera shifts outside to reveal the silhouettes of Japanese torpedo planes flying only feet above the water, their engines muffled by the roar of the waves, their wings painted black to blend with the night, approaching in a lethal attack profile designed to strike without mercy or warning, and the ship responds with terrifying speed. Searchlights blaze to life with blinding white fury, illuminating the night like artificial sunrise as the anti-aircraft guns erupt instantly, explosions rippling across the sky in violent pulses of orange and red, tracers stabbing toward the incoming attackers, the air filling with smoke so thick it swirls like storm clouds over the deck. And the camera captures the visceral chaos as Japanese pilots push their engines to the limit, weaving through the inferno, dropping torpedoes that glide across the ocean like metallic sharks while the ship twists in a desperate, evasive turn, the entire vessel leaning so hard that water floods across the deck. Yet the maneuver saves it by bare meters, as torpedoes streak past the hull and detonate in towering columns of water that drench the deck in a rain of salt and fire. And the suspense explodes as one Japanese plane breaks through the flat cloud, diving toward the ship with deadly intent, its torpedo already released, flames licking at its wing. Yet in the final second, a 40mm Bofors gun rips it apart mid-air, sending a cascade of burning debris across the ocean's surface while the torpedo skims under the ship's bow. Missing by inches, and as the smoke clears and the flak guns fall silent, the viewer sees the ship emerging from the chaos not broken, not even bloodied, but burning with a terrifying, unstoppable resolve, its deck steaming, its crew breathless, its engines still pounding forward like the pulse of a monster refusing to die. And the narrator brings the suspense to a razor's edge as officers exchange shaken but determined looks, knowing this night was only a prelude to the trials still ahead. Because this ship, this fortress of steel, was destined to face storms, fire, metal, and fury far beyond anything the enemy had unleashed tonight. And with the ocean hissing around its hull and the stars shimmering above like distant witnesses, the ship pushes deeper into the darkness, carrying Point One closer to its explosive final crescendo as it becomes unmistakably clear why this vessel earned its reputation as the most dangerous American warship of World War II. As the night pressed on and the ocean churned beneath the colossal hull, the ship cut through the black waters with a presence so ominous that even the waves seemed to recoil from its passage. And the suspense tightens as the narrator draws the viewer deeper into the steel labyrinth inside the warship, where engineers wipe sweat from their faces while monitoring trembling gauges. Damage control teams prowl dim corridors for hidden leaks or structural cracks, and the low rumble of the engines resonates through the metal floors, like the growl of a beast ready for its next kill. Yet above deck, the tension grows more suffocating as the captain steps onto the bridge, scanning the moonlit ocean through binoculars, sensing, not seeing, not hearing, but sensing that the enemy has not retreated, that somewhere out there, beyond the shimmer of starlight on the waves, a new threat stalks them, waiting for the perfect moment to strike, and the camera sweeps across the observation deck where sailors stand at their stations, knuckles white around their grips, eyes darting between the shifting waves and the sky above, because they know that the Japanese Imperial Navy, wounded and enraged, never lets its prey slip away without one last savage attempt. And the suspense spikes when a sudden tremor ripples through the hull, subtle yet unmistakable, a shockwave beneath the surface, followed by another, stronger, closer, until sonar operators shout an urgent warning. Multiple torpedo wakes approaching from the starboard side, slicing through the black water like streaks of silver death, and chaos erupts in an instant as alarms blare. Lights flash crimson and officers scream orders across the bridge, the helmsman cranking the wheel with all his strength as the ship leans heavily, creaking, groaning, the deck tilting so sharply that unsecured tools slide across metal floors, and the camera follows the torpedoes as they glide toward the ship with mechanical determination, frothing white trails behind them, closing the deadly distance, 50 meters, 40, 30, until the first two explode prematurely in a thundering plume from the ship's aggressive turn. But a third torpedo races straight toward the hull, impact inevitable, the crew bracing for a catastrophic blow, until the never-before-seen strength of the warship reveals itself in a moment that becomes the stuff of legend. The torpedo slams into the ship's reinforced armored belt with a deafening explosion that sends a geyser of fire and water skyward, shaking the vessel with violent shockwaves that rattle bolts and shutter bulkheads, yet the hull holds. The armor absorbs the blow, and the ship roars defiantly through the smoke as if mocking the enemy's fiercest weapon. And the suspense surges as sonar reports another contact, this time directly beneath them, forcing officers to order a blistering counterattack. Depth charges released in rapid volleys, booming underwater with such force that the entire sea seems to convulse, cracks of pressure tearing through the deep until a massive plume erupts behind the ship, marking the destruction of yet another submarine foolish enough to challenge this floating titan. And as the thunderous echoes fade into the night, the camera pans slowly across the ship's towering silhouette, its guns still turning, its engines still pounding forward, its crew standing tall despite the deafening chaos they just survived. And viewers feel the chilling realization that this vessel is not merely capable of withstanding the most sophisticated weapons of its time. It was designed, too, built from the keel up to endure the unimaginable, to take hits that would annihilate any lesser ship, to remain unbroken in storms of metal and fire that should have torn steel apart, all while delivering destruction with ruthless, unstoppable precision. And as the narrator draws point one even closer to its explosive peak, one truth becomes crystal clear. This was the warship Japan feared more than any other, the vessel whose shadow stretched across the Pacific, the monstrous engine of war that every enemy commander hoped to avoid, and yet could never escape. From the moment the first hull of the U.S. Navy's most dangerous ship slid into the water, shrouded in mist and mystery, naval officers and enemy observers alike felt a chill ripple across the oceans, because this was no ordinary battleship, no typical destroyer, no conventional cruiser. It was engineered with one terrifying purpose: to dominate the seas with a combination of speed, firepower, armor, and strategic ingenuity that defied all expectations. And the suspense intensifies as the camera sweeps across its massive deck, where steel meets steel, guns bristle like mechanical predators, radar arrays spin like watchful eyes scanning the horizon for the faintest ripple, and the ship's engines vibrate with a deep, almost primal roar that hints at the devastating power contained within. And as the narrator draws viewers into the tension, we learn that this ship was designed to survive hits that would cripple ordinary vessels, with armored belts, reinforced bulkheads, and compartmentalized systems ensuring that fire, torpedoes, and shells could strike again and again without toppling its lethal presence, and the suspense deepens as engineers, designers, and commanders walk the decks, inspecting every bolt, every turret, every gun mount, knowing that each calculated detail could mean the difference between victory and annihilation. And the camera pans to its massive guns, each capable of launching shells the size of small cars with pinpoint accuracy, obliterating enemy ships from miles away while the ship's maneuverability allows it to evade return fire in a deadly dance across the waves. And the narrative tightens as the first test firing begins, the cannons erupting in thunderous fury, shock waves rolling across the deck, sailors gripping rails, goggles fogging, ears ringing, and viewers begin to feel the sheer destructive magnitude of this floating fortress. Because every salvo is a statement, every turret rotation a calculated threat, every radar ping a silent promise to any adversary daring to challenge it. And the suspense mounts further as the narrator reveals that during initial sea trials, mock enemy vessels were shredded in seconds, torpedoes detonated harmlessly against its reinforced hull, and speed trials showed that it could outrun conventional threats while bringing its full destructive power to bear at will, leaving enemy intelligence scrambling to comprehend the implications. And as the camera cuts to a stormy horizon, lightning illuminating the ship's formidable silhouette, the audience senses that this vessel is more than steel and gunpowder. It is a psychological weapon, a floating fortress of inevitability, designed not only to win battles but to strike terror across entire fleets. And the suspense tightens as the narrator emphasizes that this is only the beginning. The first minute of a story where each chapter reveals new, staggering layers of design genius, battlefield dominance, and the terrifying truth about why this ship was, and remains, the most dangerous vessel the U.S. Navy ever deployed during the Second World War, a leviathan of the deep that changed naval warfare forever, and viewers are left on the edge of their seats, knowing that what comes next will reveal just how this singular ship carved its legend into history, leaving nothing but awe, shock, and complete domination in its wake. As the smoke from countless engagements rose above the waves and the ship's massive silhouette cut through the horizon like a predator stalking its prey, the full scale of its danger became undeniable. Because every enemy vessel that dared approach, every convoy, every cruiser, every battleship, felt the crushing weight of its guns, the inevitability of its targeting systems, and the unrelenting discipline of its crew, and the suspense tightens as the narrator draws viewers into the final climactic battles where the ship unleashed its full arsenal, raining destruction across enemy fleets with precision that seemed almost supernatural, its guns firing shells that tore through steel hulls, its torpedo defense systems neutralizing attacks with surgical efficiency, and its radar and navigation arrays guiding every move with uncanny accuracy, making it nearly untouchable while the enemy scrambled in panic, desperately trying to evade a machine that seemed to anticipate every maneuver, every tactic, every feint, and yet the ship moved with fluidity, elegance, and deadly purpose, a paradox of monstrous size and terrifying agility. And the tension peaks as the narrator recounts the ship's final legendary engagements, where multiple enemy vessels were obliterated in coordinated strikes, losses so massive that opposing commanders questioned their own existence, and the camera sweeps across burning waters, twisted metal and lifeboats drifting helplessly, while the ship remains unscathed, engines roaring, guns primed, crew alert, poised for another strike, and the suspense becomes almost unbearable as the narrator emphasizes that this vessel was not simply a weapon, it was a declaration of dominance, a floating fortress that redefined naval warfare, a psychological terror that shattered morale before battle even began. And as the camera pulls back to show the ship cutting across the sunlit Pacific, its turrets glinting, its decks alive with coordinated precision, the audience feels the final crushing realization. The U.S. Navy had unleashed a force so powerful, so efficient, so terrifyingly effective that no adversary could match it. And the narrator closes with haunting finality, leaving viewers breathless, stunned, and riveted to the screen, knowing that the most dangerous ship of the Second World War had not only survived its trials, but had rewritten history, dominance and fear into the very waves of the ocean, forever earning its place as a leviathan of the sea, a testament to human engineering, strategy, and relentless power, leaving no doubt why this vessel remains unmatched in legend, legacy, and lethal capability.